friends, it's Jackie with Cross My Stitches, and today I wanted to show you how to do my horizontal pin stitch. I'm sure it's not mine, okay? I say mine, but let's not everybody go crazy and say that's not yours. This is the way I do the pin stitch. I've watched several videos, not a ton, but most of them show a vertical pin stitch. I didn't think it worked well for what I wanted it to do, so I made a horizontal one. I have seen others do the horizontal one, but I wanted to share that with you guys today, and I was hoping to share it in a video where you actually see my stitching, but I cannot get the angle and the camera to stay focused to do it. So I'm doing it on a piece of foam board, and I want to show you how to do it on here, and hopefully you understand what I'm trying to show you. And we'll see how it goes. So a horizontal pin stitch is a pin stitch to use so that if you don't want to run tails through the back, or you have stitches that are isolated stitches and you just need to do 1 or 2 stitches and you have nowhere to secure your threads, this is a great way to do it. It is made for even weave and linen. In order to do this with Aida, you would have to split threads, so it's probably not a good option for those of you that stitch on Aida, but if you stitch on even weave or linen, I love this way. My threads are secure. I've never had an issue with them coming loose, and it's easy to start and easy to finish. Okay, so let's get started. So I isolated some threads, so because we're stitching over 2, whether it's 1 over 2 or 2 over 2, this is what it would look like. Of course, your threads would be a lot closer together than this, but in order to demonstrate this, this is how we're going to do it. So what you would do is you start from the back. Now I will start from the back and just hold my tail in place for a minute until I get the stitches in place. You certainly can start from the front and poke through the front, go to the back, and then cut your tail after. It's up to you. But you're going to start and come up directly in the center and go down in the block next to it. Okay? You're going to come back up in the farthest block and then go back down into the center again. Okay, so now you've come up through the center, you've come down here on either side, doesn't matter. I'm left-handed, so I tend to go this way. You can go either way, but come up in the center, go down in one side, come back up in the other opposite side, back down in the center, and then poke up wherever you start your stitch. Now I stitch left to right, so I would poke up right here in this spot right there, and I would start my stitches. Now after I pull this thread up, I go in the back and I trim my tail down. I just trim it off. But before I trim it off, I give it a little tug. So I pull on my little tail, tug it, make sure it's tight, pull on the threads on the front that I've got, just a little tug, make sure everything's snug, and then I cut it off. And then I proceed to take my stitches. So going up and then coming back and going up. So it begins to look like this. Okay? And I guarantee when you do this, you're not going to notice that really. I'm telling you, it's not that noticeable at all. Okay? Now I do this with 1 thread and I've done it with 2 threads. And it's not noticeable at all. Now, if we were doing just 1 stitch, so you have 1 little dot snowflake somewhere, how would I finish this? How you would finish it is whatever your last poke in. So my last poke would be right here. So that's where I went in last. You want to go to the opposite corner down here. Okay? And you want to come up there, go back down in the center. Just push your threads out of the way with your needle and go back down in the center. Okay? Come back up here. So I'm going to come back up here and do the same thing. Go all the way down, back into the center. Okay? And then trim off in the back. So if I was stitching, I'll try to do this while I'm looking, I would do my pin stitch, going in, so coming from here, going to the outside here, coming back in, I'd start here, I'd start my leg, right? So I'm stitching, and whether you stitch back and forth or whatever you do, stitching, stitching, I'm going back, I'm going back, going back, going back. And then I stopped here. Then I would come up in here, push the threads aside, go back in the center. Come up here, push the threads aside and go back in the center and trim. Now, if I am doing just one stitch back and forth like I just did, I would have done it a little differently. So what I would have done if I'm just running one row, I would come up in the center of my stitch, go down over here, come up here, go down, right? So now I'm coming up here, and I would come up, right, do my cross stitch, then go to the next one and run my stitches like I normally would if I'm running stitches, if I'm using DMC, okay, and then run my stitches back. And then when I got back to here, then I would go to the opposite side here, pull my thread up, push my threads aside, go back in the center, come up on this side, and then push my threads aside, go back in the center and trim in the back. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I hope that I'm probably leaning down as I'm doing this. Okay, so and you can do this either way. I mean, you can, if you start in the center and you're going out to one side, come up here, go back in, right? You're doing your X's. Okay. There's our X's, right? And then when you're done, if I finished here, now if you started and finished on this side or wherever you stopped, go to the opposite side. So let's say I stopped here. I did my X's the opposite way. And I stopped here. Then I would bring my thread up right here, push the threads aside, go into the center. Okay, and do the same thing. Come up on this side, push my threads aside and go into the center, and then trim on the back. So I hope that makes sense to you. Give it a try. It's not difficult to do. Make sure, like I said, when you're initially doing your thing, up in the center, down to one side, up in the other side, back down in the middle, and then bring your stitch wherever you're going. I usually go there, and I pull it up, I give it a little tug, I give the little tail in the back a little tug, and then I trim it off, and then I do my stitches. It's really easy. It's great if you just have one stitch to do. You don't have to worry, one or two stitches. You can start them and stop them at will. Just like we said here, right? You go in the center, off to the side, come back in the side, back to the center, make your X, and then from here, you're going to go all the way down, come up here, go push your little threads aside, just take your needle and push them aside, go back down the center, bring your needle up here, go back down the center and trim. It's as simple as that. It's really easy. It saves you from running tails if you don't like to run tails. Sometimes I'm using 2 threads. I'll do a loop start and then I'll finish doing this so I don't have tails in the back. Works really great. I hope that helps somebody. I hope I explained that. If you have further questions, please leave them below and ask. I don't mind at all. I'm just trying to share some simple ways that I do things that will make it easy for you in your stitching. And although you see all these little legs going this way and this way, in the end you don't see them. You do not see them. And and if you're using one thread, it just fills out that stitch a little more, makes it a little fuller. So I hope that helps somebody. I hope you will give this a try, practice it on a piece of Aida or even weave and see what you think, and then let me know. And that's it. I will see you guys later. Bye.